Polytechnic University of the Philippines on the motion that his house would deny any commutation of sentence for murder convicts. How does society see murder convicts? They see murder convicts as a threat to themselves. Is the society willing to accept them? Are you willing to accept an individual who is actually has a criminal record of murder in the society? Yes or no?
So you think it is justifiable for society to be very vindictive against these criminals?
I did not say that it's actually being justifiable. But the point here is that based on the awards, the punishment of the award must be served in order for the society to feel that they have actually been reformed.
What are laws if they have no teeth, ladies and gentlemen? What is the use of our justice system if we have a wrong justice to be served? Yes, what is
Can you actually justify that within the period of sentence or fulfillment of sentence, there really is acceptance or repentance coming from these criminals?
Ladies and gentlemen, it is subjective in nature. The president may grant this kind of commutation. It is very subjective. It doesn't give us any guarantee whether or not this person really committed that particular crime or he really repented for that particular crime.
I think the PMA's case is simple but straightforward. We would let them go, but after full service of the term. I particularly like the way you use the nature of the penalty and why it should be proportional to the offense committed, and that the full service would mean internalization of the gravity of the offense. That hits it right there. What I particularly like about the method is the way you responded when they said that we will commute them when they reach 70 or when they reach certain standards. When you responded and said that it's highly discretionary, I think you're very dynamic in the debate. So although you have some difficulty expressing yourselves, it's a good debate.
Another breakout performance this season came from a Visayas team, Silliman University, which defeated 7th-seeded Lyceum University on the motion that the Violence Against Women and Children Act is discriminatory.
First argument will be that men are not given due process, and because of this absolute framework that it takes into consideration. Number two, how there is no counterbalance for men in the law. And number three, Christy will talk about the reinforcement of the binary opposition within this law. And we say, Mr. Chair, as a fair justice system, men must be given equal opportunity in order to express themselves, because sometimes men are also subject to abuse. Yes?
Okay, sir, tell me, how do you actually give men their own mechanism to promote their own rights? Because you are actually talking about the merits of this particular law without actually telling us what do you want to replace it with.
We don't want to replace it with anything. We're just talking about how the law discriminates men as well as women, Mr. Chair.
We say that this law is not only not discriminatory against men, but this is actually beneficial for society. Why? Because we say that in the context of today's, in the context of the status quo in the Philippines, there is an unequal playing field between men and women, and that is actually something that we must actually address. We say that that is actually being addressed by this particular law.
We can easily concede that this is a very patriarchal society. But what we ask, do you actually remedy a patriarchal society by implementing a law that is based on the stereotypes that actually perpetuate a patriarchal society? Do you make it equal by creating a law based on gender stereotypes, ladies and gentlemen?
We say that men can be psychologically abused by nagging wives, ladies and gentlemen, so that we should not only see that particular area where, you know, the men are always physically brutal, because there are different dynamics in a relationship. And that's something that we need to show, ladies and gentlemen. And that's something that we need to address in the law, ladies and gentlemen. Before I go to my last issue, yes.
I don't know why the law or the state should actually intervene in a personal affair wherein nagging is actually involved. If that is your idea of abuse, then we say that it's actually not the abuse that the state is actually designed to intervene in.
Ladies and gentlemen, then they're killing their case in the first place, because if they're saying that the law should not intervene, then we should not have this act at all, ladies and gentlemen. That we should leave it up to the family to always settle the case, ladies and gentlemen. We say that there is a need for this law, but we need to have a law which actually promotes equality between both genders.
I liked, actually, although it came too late in the debate with the government whip, when she said, you know what, we're okay with a law that protects women. It's just that we want the law to protect both men and women. At least there, opposition can't attack you and say, what about all the women who are being abused? All that being said, I thought there were particularly solid arguments, especially coming from the Deputy Prime Minister, who argued that Of course, given a patriarchal society, it doesn't mean we have to have patriarchal laws. That's it.
So we had the surprise performances, then we had the expected performances. Our eventual champion showed early on how to combine matter, manner, and method to make a winning argument. Witness this matchup between the medical students of UP Manila and the Ateneo de Manila University. Their debate on the motion that this House would tolerate a certain level of corruption for the greater good set the bar for the quality of debate that engages the public and judges. Ateneo also demonstrated from the outset that it had a knack for defining or interpreting a motion to suit its purposes, which was to serve them well throughout the tournament.
The first argument on how we talk about realism and the principle of where the state's obligation lies. We think that states never have absolute values. Prioritization happens all the time. Prioritization happens in budget setting. Prioritization happens in terms of which bills are set, which bills are passed. Prioritization happens even in criminal cases. We are open to giving immunity to star witnesses who can expose the greater criminals that we want to be able to send to jail. We think that in status quo, when you talk about corrupt government officials, there are very, very few, and this is the sad reality, that are absolutely clean. A lot of them will have allegations of corruption levied against them. Some of them will even admit to their very own corruption. Ladies and gentlemen, we think on Affirmative Bench that often the best and most credible witnesses are those that are immersed in the system themselves. Tolerating a certain degree of corruption inevitably magnifies a culture of dysfunctional government. How do you differentiate if a person is simply doing an allowable form of corruption, or if the magnitude is really too high, that there should be commensurate punishment to that particular act? We tell you that Losada is very brave to tell the public the truth, but at the same time, that bravery should be responded to with the proper accountability and commensurability.
Allow me first and foremost to deal with a very, very principled but very, very naive leader of opposition, ladies and gentlemen, and members of this House. The first question he asked us is, what is the difference between tolerable and intolerable levels of corruption? Well, we say it's quite easy to tell between people who are calling the shots and between people who are middlemen and simply smaller fish down the chain. We think people are not that stupid, ladies and gentlemen, and we're quite able to identify who these people are without having to name any names in this debate today. Because we think that they've lost, ladies and gentlemen, they're lost in a lot of the trivialities, but not really engaging in the entire principle of debate and precisely how much we should be forwarding the greater good of the populace at the end of the day. Because they seem to think it's so easy to come forward. It's so easy to be a witness. It's so easy to go to the Senate and testify. We question, if it's so easy, no thank you, sir, then why do people have to fly to Hong Kong? If it's so easy, ladies and gentlemen, why are people reneging and taking refuge under executive privilege, for example?
What we need is something that will change Philippine culture and Philippine politics in general, and your proposal doesn't do that.
We think, ladies and gentlemen, that our policy, while it might be a little bit lighter on the smaller people, still forwards a greater good. What they haven't done at all in this debate is really weigh precisely what the efforts, what results they want to get. If they want to get bogged down in a lot of small cases, ladies and gentlemen, and get bogged down in Senate inquiries on smaller level people, let them do so, but let them die with the rest of our country, ladies and gentlemen, and with this House. That's something we strongly say from government side.
In the status quo, the middlemen are already protected, or the middlemen already have enough incentive to come forward in these cases. Because we talk about how in the status quo, we already have lesser punishment given to these middlemen. And also, we already have the added incentive wherein the middlemen are already hailed by the entire nation as heroes. How much more of an incentive do you want other than that? We say at the end of the day, in the opposition paradigm, we must protect still the fundamental value wherein the laws must be upheld at all circumstances, at all times in the Philippine nation.
They just said that, you know what, in status quo, incentives come out, you know, there are protection in status quo. In fact, people, they're hailed as heroes, and because of that, they come out. Well, we say, fine, they might be hailed as heroes, but they're also most likely to be hailed with bullets coming from the, I'm sorry, I had to make a joke, hailed by bullets coming from, you know, the people who are against them.
We see it coming from this side of the House, the opposition side, that it is better for us to be more absolute about it. Because if we are more absolute about it, then we are going to be able to, in fact, inspire changes and inspire a revolution on all sectors of society, not just on the higher ups, where they're just saying that the only people who need to be accountable and the only people who need to be punished are the ones at the top. We say that if we really want change in the government, if we really want change in Philippine the society and get rid of this nasty, nasty culture of corruption, we have to start it in the middle. We have to start it at the bottom.
We gave it to the team whose definition and teamwork was superior to the other team, and we felt that the opposition team was lacking in its capacity to adapt to the way the government was able to set up the definition. I felt that, and we felt that, the opposition did not expect that kind of definition and was therefore unable to quickly respond by giving relevant argumentation. And so for this reason, we gave it to the government team.
More highlights and lowlights when Square Off the Odyssey continues after this break.